Hi, this is Indivisible, Bowie, and Beyond with a What's the Plan recap. What's the Plan is the weekly meeting that is hosted by Indivisible National's co-founders Ezra, Levin, and Leah Greenberg. And we're going to discuss some of the topics that are top of everyone's mind right now. First thing I want to talk about is they hosted a special guest, Dr. Jasmine Clark, who is currently in the Georgia State House of Representatives, I believe, and is running for the congressional House seat in Georgia District 13. Highly recommend that you go and watch the interview. She is a brilliant woman and just heart sings to listen to all of the amazing ways that she wants to bring truth and science back to Congress. So she is running against a 23-year incumbent who has not even voted in, I think they said, the last 7 elections in his district. That screams of a person who is way too comfortable in his job and has completely checked out. He is just there for the paycheck and not for his constituents. If you are interested, please go check out her website, which is jasmine4ga.com, and you can see all the ways that you can help donate or volunteer for her campaign. She said that right now one of the big hurdles that she has is funding, so she can use all the dollars that you can send her way. She is not taking any PAC money at all. She is completely grassroots funded, and let's get someone in Georgia who is going to fight for their constituents in District 13. Topics that were brought up and are, really on top of all of our minds right now are the warehouses that are being turned into concentration camps all across the nation, suppression bills, and the upcoming 2026 election. So one of the topics that we should all be concerned about is there are a vast number of warehouses that are being converted into detention facilities, but they're concentration camps. They are intended to concentrate a large number of people in a small space that was not designed to house human beings. And we should all be angry and outraged over this because it is coming to small communities. And these are warehouses that our tax dollars are being used to acquire for ridiculous amounts of money. I will link in the description below, or in the comments below, an article out of, I think it's Social Circle, Georgia, where this small community of about 5,000 people had one of their warehouses purchased, and it is across the street from a school, an elementary school, and they're expected to house 10,000 people in that, effectively tripling the population of that small city and, pulling resources away from the community, but also housing a vast number of people who we know their rights are being violated. So someone asked if there is a way that we could really highlight this in No Kings 3. And yes, absolutely. This is one of the many outrageous acts that this regime is engaging in that we need to be calling attention to. We are not a country that puts people in concentration camps, and people will be profiting off of this human detention. Follow the money. GeoGroup and CoreCivic are two of the large corporations that are running the current detention facilities. And so we need to be outraged over this. In Maryland, we have the 287G ban just went into effect. The governor is preventing our local law enforcement from working with ICE, but we still have work to do because the federal government is coming in and purchasing or attempting to purchase warehouses. So we need to make sure that here in our own backyard, we are letting our local, state, and our federal representation know how outraged we are about this. Some other concerns were right suppression bills, like the SAVE Act, also known as the Save America Act, which I think is the newest iteration that has passed the House and has stalled in the Senate. it was going to require 60 votes in the Senate to pass. And this is the bill that requires proof of citizenship in order to vote and in order to register to vote. And it will require 60 votes. It is not a popular bill. And so they are going to have a very difficult time. The only way it would pass is if the Senate finally gets rid of the filibuster, which would allow for a simple majority. But the Republicans know how powerful the filibuster is, and that's very unlikely to happen. The other bill that got brought up is a state-specific one. It's the Florida House Bill 1471, which is the Systems of Law and Terrorist Organizations. So essentially, it's saying that it's trying to scare people from protesting, which the federal government put out a memo last year in like October timeframe that was labeling protest organizations like Indivisible as terrorist organizations. And they are labeling protesters who were killed, Renee Good and Alex Preddy, as domestic terrorists. So there's this push to suppress our freedom of speech, our freedom to protest, and our right to vote. All of those are congressionally protected rights. So Ezra specifically said that, we have to remember as American citizens that they cannot just take away our rights unless we say, oh, you're scaring us so much. Yes, we're just going to stay quiet. No, we do not stay quiet in these moments when our lawmakers are trying to pull this nonsense. So do not allow these bills to scare you. This just means we have to speak louder. And finally, there were quite a few questions that had to do with the 2026 midterm elections. And I'm going to kind of cover some general ideas that we should consider. Somebody had asked, how do we not demonize primary opponents? And, we should be focusing on the platforms of all the primary candidates. And then we support the primary candidate who best aligns with our vision of the future. And if they win, huzzah! We have an amazing candidate who is going to progress our nation to that beautiful vision that we all want to see. And if they lose, then we, rally behind the winner of the Democratic primary. Because right now, the Republican platform is one that harms people. And that's what we should be focusing on. Generally, people want to see universal health care. We want to see education funded. We want to see our environment clean and beautiful and pristine and not being sold to Chile. So those are all things that we can rally behind. And then whoever wins the primary, then we end up pushing them and saying, okay, cool, you won. This is what's important to me. And then we push those candidates to move the needle a little bit more beyond their comfort zone. So we want to maintain our integrity and our nonviolence and our respect and human dignity for our candidates. Not every candidate has to have a perfect solution or perfect answers for how we move the needle forward. Because a lot of that is also going to take time and research to figure out how best to serve the American people and how best to undo the damage that the Trump administration has inflicted on us as a nation. And the final aspect of the 2026 primaries that comes up repeatedly is an election integrity. And somebody had a really interesting question, and it elicited a response I was not necessarily expecting. Because the asker was curious how blue states can help protect red states. And Ezra and Leah's response was, nobody is safe, essentially. At least that was my interpretation of how that section went down, was that, we have issues. And yes, the states that are in the most danger are the states that have the Republican trifecta that can create the most damage to their voters and to the systems that are in place to roll back protections for election integrity. But that doesn't necessarily mean that blue states are entirely safe. So it really means that we are all going to have to be very vigilant and keep an eye on what's going on locally as well as nationally. And that also ties back into the SAVE Act, because Donald Trump wants to federalize our elections, and that is unconstitutional. The states in the Constitution have the right to oversee their elections. So on local, state and federal level, we are all going to have to be vigilant to make sure that they don't try and take away our rights. And when they do try some of this nonsense, we call it out and we get outraged en masse. So that was my overview. Again, I highly recommend that you go and watch the entire thing. This is just my recap and what I took away from the meeting, but please go make your own judgments, and I will see you next week.